You pray, but something inside has already decided, and you already know it. So why do you still pray if you already decided? There's a silent error, and it might already be happening in you. It makes you think you're at peace with God, when in reality, something inside you has already stopped responding. Peace is not when nothing bothers you. It's when God still corrects you. And you're about to see exactly where this is already showing up in your decisions today. If you see this, you can stop it. It didn't happen all at once. It didn't break. It shifted. You pray. You ask for direction.
But inside, something has already stopped responding. And minutes later, you do exactly what you had already decided. Not slowly, not accidentally. Exactly what you had already decided. And you barely notice, because on the outside, everything looks the same. You still pray, you still believe, you still continue. But inside, something has already moved. It's not rebellion. It feels like peace.
Stay with me, because what you're calling peace might already be silence. And if you don't see it, you will keep deciding without God, without even realizing it. And the more you do it, the more normal it becomes. But if you recognize it now, you will see exactly where everything changed.
Not everything that looks stable is stable. So the real question is not, am I okay? The real question is this: what if you're not, and you can't see it anymore? Because this doesn't happen loudly. It doesn't break your life. It doesn't create a crisis. It happens quietly. It happens gradually. It happens without interruption. You don't drift away from God loudly. You drift quietly, decision by decision. Faith doesn't always collapse. It adapts. Faith doesn't break. It adjusts. That's exactly why it's dangerous. Because you don't feel it breaking. You feel it stabilizing. This is not theory. You pray. You close your eyes. You say, God, guide me. But inside, you already know what you're going to do. And minutes later, you do it. You respond impulsively. You make decisions. You move forward. As if God never said anything. You kept praying, but stopped surrendering. This is not confusion.
This is disobedience you learn to justify. Like this: you pray for direction, then you text back immediately, without reconsidering. Not because he didn't speak, but because you didn't stop. Like saying, I'll think about it later, and then never coming back. This is where something shifts. Not outside, inside. It becomes normal. This is where most people stop seeing it, because once it feels normal, you stop questioning it. Stay with me. This next part is where it gets clearer. That's where something is lost. Not in a moment. In repetition. It repeats. And it defines you. That's how it takes over. And that's when you start living without consulting God. This is where it turns invisible. Because nothing on the outside looks wrong. But inside, everything has already shifted. Here's the most dangerous point. You still pray. You still believe. But you no longer expect God to intervene. You didn't reject God. You just stopped involving Him. When expectation disappears, dependence disappears. When dependence disappears, you start deciding. This is the line almost nobody notices crossing. But once you cross it, everything after that feels normal. And that's why everything after that feels normal. When you start deciding, God stops governing what matters. Your life continues. But it is no longer under His authority, and without realizing it, you start living a faith that doesn't depend on God anymore.
A faith that works, even when God is not involved. And that's not a mistake. That's a pattern. Every decision without God feels easier now, and heavier later. And that shows up. It always shows up. In what you choose, in what you avoid, in what you stop asking, And if you look closely, you will see it in your recent decisions. This is the point almost nobody sees. But once you see it, you can't unsee it. It's coming from something deeper. And this is exactly what shapes every decision you're making right now. As A.W. Tozer said, what comes into our minds when we think about God is the most important thing about us. That's the rule behind every decision you make. And that doesn't stay theoretical. It becomes decisions. It becomes direction. It becomes your life. And over time, this is what it leads to. Slowly, prayer loses weight. Scripture stops directing. Life moves into autopilot. Same responses. No awareness. Watch this. This is where it becomes dangerous. Because you're still moving but no longer aware. Here is the shift. What used to confront you doesn't anymore. What stopped bothering you starts controlling you. Not emotionally, functionally, not because God stopped speaking, but because you stopped responding. Not because God is silent, but because you stopped listening. And if you're honest, you've felt this before. You just didn't stay long enough to face it. That is the illusion.
No tension doesn't mean maturity. It can mean disconnection. Stay with this for a second, because this is where most people look away. Don't drift here. This is where most people miss it. The Bible describes this clearly. In Revelation chapter 2, verse 4, you left your first love. In Isaiah chapter 29, verse 13, you honor with your lips, but your heart is far. In James chapter 1, verse 22, you hear, but you don't respond. In every case, the form remains, but the response disappears. And that leads to a final standard. In Hebrews chapter 13, verse 8, Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. God didn't change. He didn't move. He didn't become distant. So if something changed, it was your response. This is not theoretical. This has already happened before. Watch closely. This is where it becomes undeniable. With Peter, he said he would stay faithful. But under pressure, he reacted. He denied. He stepped back. He still believed. But he wasn't responding anymore. And if you're honest, this might be exactly where you are. This is the part most people avoid, because this is where it becomes personal. But when he was confronted again, in John 21, he responded again. Maturity is not doing more. It's depending deeper. And that defines everything. The problem is not falling. The problem is staying without response. So this is where everything is decided, not whether you still believe, but whether God is still part of your decisions. You didn't lose your faith, but you may have lost what made it alive. You didn't lose God. You just stopped including Him. You didn't lose God. You stopped depending on Him. This doesn't change with more activity. It changes with dependence. Don't ignore this, because the most dangerous thing is not being wrong. It's being wrong and no longer seeing it. And if you saw it today, this is not random. This is a decision point. Go back to expecting God, or keep adapting to silence, because in the end, no one walks away from faith overnight. They just learn to live without needing God. This is not maturity. This is drift. And when they realize it, they're already far away. Without knowing when it happened, faith doesn't die in one moment. It fades in unnoticed decisions.
Faith doesn't die when you stop believing.
It dies when you stop depending on God.
I'm the Lord your God. I teach you what's best for you and guide you in the way you should go. Isaiah 48:17.
Answer this honestly. Where in your life did you stop expecting God and start deciding on your own? If this is real for you, write it. I decided on my own, not to expose yourself, but to stop ignoring it, and share this with someone who needs to see it, because sometimes what looks like stability is already silence.